Hello, everyone. We'll get started in just a minute, and I want to do a quick sound check. If someone out there in chat land can just say if you can hear okay. Let me do another sound check and see if you can hear out in out on the internet. Okay. Great. Thank you, Jim. Okay, we'll get started. Thanks for joining. And this is an experiment, so please bear with us. This is the first time that we're doing this on YouTube live stream. So thank you for your patience. So what I'm going to do tonight is kind of walk you through, for those of you who are interested in Python, beginning Python, and basic Python. Uh, we have set up initially a set of sequence of courses for learning Python. And what I want to do tonight is kind of give you a flavor of what it's going to mean. We're going to go through and set up the environment that you'll be working in. And if you want to follow along, you can get it set up tonight to uh, program in Python. And the environment that we'll be using is what many professional programmers use. So you're not going to be learning kind of a baby environment. You're going to be exposed right off the bat to a professional environment for programming in Python. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. And then I'm going to walk you through a basic set of principles that you'll learn in the beginning Python or basic Python levels 1, 2, and 3. The more detail about the curriculum is posted on the website. Let me put the URL and you can consult that in your own time. So it's pythonfab.com. And if I bring up my screen, right now we have basic Python level 1, which begins on February the 7th. And what we'll do in basic Python level 1 is really just set up the environment, which I'll show you tonight. We want to get comfortable using that. The basic set of concepts in programming, this is not just Python, but any programming language. There are basic set of concepts that you need to understand and master. And so you'll be introduced to that in the basic Python level 1 course. And then you'll write some very simple programs. And the goal of level 1 is to get you set up in the environment. I call it the cockpit, much like a pilot gets used to the cockpit and the set of instruments. And So we want you to be comfortable with that. That's goal number one. Goal number two, this is going to be the most important thing for you to learn, and that's not Python. The most important thing for you to learn initially is what are called micro habits. And if you're going to be good at anything, you have to develop a set of good habits and discipline. And so the first micro habit that it's going to be really important that you develop in basic Python level 1 is get used to the idea of working at least 3 times a week for 30 minutes. Okay, you got to put in the time, and you have to put it 3 times a week, 30 minutes. Start with a modest goal. Make sure that you can meet that. And then after about a month or so, then kick it up to maybe 3 or 4 times a week. Increase the amount of time that you spend. Okay, so consistency of practice is going to be the most vital skill that you need to get under your belt. Okay, so basic Python level 1 starts February 7th, and it's going to be 2 sessions. I'll also show you the website that you'll have access to if you decide to take that. Then level 2, we're going to focus on 3 really critical topics in Python. Collections, I'll talk a little bit about that tonight. Iteration, we'll talk about that as well, and branching. So level 2 basic Python, a little bit of a deeper dive on these 3 concepts. All right, so let me increase my voice a little bit. Thank you if you're having difficulty hearing me. I'll speak a little bit louder. Okay, level 3, we're going to look at functions, a type of collection called dictionaries, and then string methods. So that's going to be the set of topics for basic Python level 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to give you a flavor of what that means a little bit tonight. Then we also will have intermediate Python and topics like developing a quick website, some projects in Python. We want this very much to be a practical approach. So we're not going to do a lot of theory, but once you get your experience with concepts in basic Python and a little bit of programming under your belt, we're going to start working on projects. So this is going to give you very hands-on practical experience. This is everything from building websites to a to-do list. If you're in scientific computation or data analysis, using Python to solve really and apply very practical problems. Okay, so that's a little bit of the curriculum. Now let me jump ahead to the environment that you're going to be working in. So first step is going to be want you to create an account on GitHub if you have not already. So you can create a free account in GitHub, and there's a video that you'll have access to if you need to orient yourself. But it's very, very easy. Just if you don't have a GitHub account, the website is github.com. You can go sign up, and you just need email address and your name, and you'll have a GitHub account. And we'll be working in that environment. We're just gonna go there in just a minute. So I'm gonna go and sign in to GitHub using one of my accounts. So I'm signing into GitHub, and you're gonna be spending a lot of time in and around GitHub. But for basic Python, the first place that we're going to go to is something called code spaces. And that's up at the top of the screen. You're going to select code spaces. And then there's a set of templates. So Codespaces provides you the ability to code in the cloud. So you don't have to download and install software. You can do everything on the cloud. And that's what, for the basic Python, that's what we're going to do. Now, eventually, we also want you to download and install a code editor called VS Code on your own machine. And there'll be instructions on how to do that. But to get started, we're going to use Codespaces, and it has VS Code on the cloud in GitHub. All right, so go back, click on Codespaces, then you'll select. There are a number of templates, so you can use Codespaces to program in Java, program C++, a variety of programming languages. But we're going to choose a blank template. So I'll use this template called blank. And then it's going to take a few seconds while it's building the environment for you. And down at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, I don't think you can see it here. Let me move that up a little bit. And now what we have is VS Code. Okay, so VS Code is the editor that you'll be using for programming in Python. And the VS Code is used by many professional programmers as their primary programming environment. And so this is what you're going to be learning to use. And when I said develop a micro habit of logging in or working in Python 30 minutes 3 times a week, this is the environment that you're going to come into. All right, so we're looking at now VS Code, and here we're going to select a theme. There are a variety of themes that you can use, dark, light, and so on. My preference is to use the dark theme, but it's really up to you on what you're comfortable with. I'm going to select dark, and now I have my theme set. I'm going to close this Get Started pane. And now the thing to notice is we're looking at really 3 windows, if you will, or panes. The top pane right now is empty. That's where we'll write our code. Bottom, there's a variety of things that we can display, but the main thing we're going to be displaying and looking at is something called terminal. And let me now I've gone down to the terminal area, and I'm going to type clear. It clears the terminal pane. And so now I have an empty canvas at the top. I'm looking at the terminal at the bottom, and then on the left-hand side we have an explorer. It's kind of like the directory and a bunch of buttons. The next thing you're going to do once you've logged in to GitHub, gone into Codespaces, selected the blank template, is on the bottom left-hand corner. I think it's a little bit off the screen, but if you scroll down to the bottom left-hand corner, there's an icon that looks like a gearbox. I'm going to select that. And we're going to select something called extensions. And it will bring up a set of extensions. Now you can search on, there are a variety of very useful extensions, and I'm going to go over those with you during the class, not tonight. But the most important extension to install, and it's really the first one that will come up typically, is the Python extension. So I'm going to select Python, and you'll see it'll ask you, do you want to install it in Codespaces? And we want to select, say, yes. Okay, and all right, so it has installed Codespaces. Installed the Python extension. I'm going to click off Get Started. Click on this. There are 4 squares on the left-hand corner. It's a toggle to close the extensions window. All right, so where are we? We are right now, we're looking at an upper pane and a lower window. Now I'm going to click on the top left-hand icon that says Explorer if you hover over it. And that's where we're going to begin. So I'm going to write now a very simple Python program. And the way I'm going to do that is select the icon. And if I hover over it, it says New File. So I'll click on that. And then I can type in the name of the file. So this is going to be, we're going to create a Python program. I'm just going to call it first, meaning my first program, and .py. So every Python program or script should have the extension .py. So I'm calling this new file that I'm going to create called first.py. I'll hit return. And now I see up at the top, I can begin to type my program. Now, just to make the font a little bit bigger, I'm going to go back to the gear box at the bottom left-hand corner, select settings instead of extensions, and under text editor, select font, and I'll change the font size from 12 to 18. Now it's really up to you to decide, what you want as the font size. So I have now increased the font size. Okay, so now I'm ready to type my first Python program. And let's type in just a very simple Python program. What it will do is we will use the command print. What do we want it to print? A string. So a string is a sequence of characters. And let's say hello world, our typical first program. And so now we have a very simple Python program. It's called, the name of the file is first.py, and it has just one instruction. The instruction is, I want you, the Python interpreter, to print something. What do I want you to print? Hello world. Okay, now I'm going to save the program. On a Macintosh, it's Command S, and something equivalent on a Windows machine. And then I'm going to go to the right-hand top area where there's a triangle, looks like a play button on a cassette, and I'll click on that. Okay, and that tells the Python, the VS Code, which is what we're working in, to execute the program, to carry that out. And a little bit hard to see, but if we look below in the terminal window, we didn't get any errors. This was the program ran properly, and the output appears in the terminal window. Let me clear the screen here by typing clear in the terminal window, and I'm going to change the program. So now instead of hello world, I'm going to add another line. Print my name is Alfred. Okay, so we have now 2 commands or 2 instructions. Print hello world, and then print my name is Alfred. Go ahead and save it again. Run it. And we see the output appear in the terminal window. All right, so we're off to a good start. And Now, what I'm going to do is switch over a little bit to a set of slides, and I'm not going to play it, but forgive me for just kind of showing it to you raw. So now, why Python? Why is it useful to learn Python? Well, I call it a gateway. It's a gateway program, not a gateway drug, but a type of drug, if you will. Python is more than learning Python. Is more than just learning a programming language or coding. So one of the aims of the course sequence is really to get you to think computationally, and we'll talk more about what that means during the course sequence itself. But part of it is to think scientifically, to think abstractly. Part of programming is to think in terms of abstractions. Very, very important skill to have. Then, of course, some of you might be interested in knowing how to build websites. You can use Python to do that. Very, very important area. This is also a set of courses that we're offering is data science, the ability to analyze data. So Python has an excellent set of libraries for doing data science, and a course sequence is also in data science. Another valuable reason for learning Python is the ability to build models, to do machine learning, AI. Very, very rich set of libraries in Python to do machine learning. And then we're going to see, and we are seeing AI as emerging as what economists call a general purpose technology. So it's a great time to be learning Python and a great time to be an entrepreneur. In fact, my main job right now is I'm working on a startup to build AI technology, and it's sort of in stealth mode right now, but we're using a lot of Python for this AI business. So great opportunity to become an entrepreneur and approach the technology from a business side. Okay, so that's why Python. Now, I'm going to subject you very, very quickly. I'm going to run through this set of principles. There are only 7 of them, 7 or 8. And then I'm going to illustrate that through code. And I want to give you a flavor of what the main concepts that you really need to learn and master as you begin your journey of Python. So I'm going to call those principles. So the first principle, so what's a program? Well, it's really a series of instructions. And think of what's an instruction. It's an imperative called an imperative, a command. So what is a program? You're telling the Python interpreter, you're giving the Python interpreter a set of instructions. I want you to do something. So we saw it as an example, print something. Okay, so a program consists of a sequence of instructions, and you as the programmer have to explicitly write down what these instructions are going to be. So that's principle number 1. And we already saw that. Instruction number 2, this is really, really critical. Each instruction underneath is really a computation. And what's a computation? Well, one way to think about a computation is we have data and we perform operations on that data. And we're going to see this theme quite a bit. All right, so kind of put that in the back of your mind. Computation, and a shorthand for computation is data and operations on data. We work on data and we operate data, we transform it, we analyze it. We take small data elements and build data structures and so on. That's principle number 2. Principle number 3, we do a computation, but we don't want it to vanish. So we need some way of storing the results of a computation. And the mechanism means by which we do that, it's called a variable. We use a variable. And a variable is basically just a name that we attach to a place in memory. So we store the results of a computation in memory, and to be able to keep track of it, we use variables to retrieve it, to store and retrieve the results of a computation. Okay, and next fundamental concept is we're working with data. We operate on data, and everything is data, and each data element in Python has a data type. And this is very, very important, and we're going to look at that tonight. But this is something that you also want to kind of lock in as a frame of reference. So each data element has a data type. The more general term for this is everything in Python is an object, and every object has a type. Another fundamental idea, we said a program is a set of instructions, but the instructions are not just linear. Often you want to repeat a set of instructions multiple times. Could be 5 times, 100 times, even 1,000,000 times. So that's called iteration. So we need to know how to do iteration. Okay, so the concept of iteration, and there are various ways in which we can perform iteration in Python. So that's something that you have to learn. Next concept, so not just program is a set of instructions. We may iterate, perform a set of instructions multiple times, but we also have this idea of branching, where depending on some condition, the program is going to go one way as opposed to another. So branching is another fundamental concept. And now we only have essentially 2 more. What makes programming languages useful is the ability to package a bunch of code, bunch of instructions into a function that you can use and reuse for yourself, but you can also package it up for other people to use. So functions are a really critical concept in programming languages, and it allows us to not have to, start from scratch. You can pull in functions, code that other people have written, and use it for yourself. But also you'll learn how to write your own functions because they save time. You don't have to repeat code. If you do the same thing multiple times throughout your program, you can use functions to do that work, and we'll see an example of that. And finally, the idea of computation and an algorithm are related, but the way I think about an algorithm is so a computation is like a recipe. If you're a cook, you carry out a sequence of steps in cooking something, baking something, but when you're cooking something, there's an end goal, baking a cake or a dish. So a computation, often the computation has an end goal, a telos, and so that's an algorithm. So kind of in summary, you have all the basic concepts of programming. This is very, very elementary to advanced programming. This is all there is. Okay, so if you know what a computation is, data types, iteration, functions, variables, branching, you pretty much have all the key concepts of programming. Now, the trick is going to be there are subtleties, different ways of doing it, depending on the particular problem that's presented to you. But the principles that I've kind of gone over and the concepts that are in front of you are essentially the main concepts of programming, and that's where we're going to develop. Okay, now let me get out of this slide and let's just go into VS Code and just look at those principles, examples of that. All right, so the first program that we wrote just had two instructions. Printed out hello world, and then my name is Alfred. Now what I'm going to do is write another program. So I will create a new file. Let's call that second.py. That's just the name of the file. So in VS Code now I've opened up another tab and I can type my next program. In Python, if I precede a line with a pound sign, that's a comment. And a comment is just a comment to yourself for annotation, for documentation. And I'm just say this is my second program. Okay, now let's write something. All right, so we said a instruction is a computation, but let's give a very simple example of that. So we had print a string, but why don't we do a computation? Now this is a simple computation. Let's add two numbers together. Print 2 plus 4.3. Now notice what's going on here is the way the Python interpreter parses this is first it's going to add 2 and 4 plus 2 to 4.3, and there's the result, and then it will print that out. So let me run this program, and it's a little bit hard to see, but below I get the result 6.3. Let me clear that. All right, so if I change this to 4.3 times 18.5, there's order of precedence. It's going to multiply first and then add the result, and we get 81.55. Okay, so here's an example of computation and then printing out the result. Now let's look at a variable and open up another pane, third.py, and hit return. Now I can go back, and if I have multiple programs that I'm working with, I can open up these different tabs just like in a browser. All right, so in this, now let's use a variable. So suppose what we want to do is calculate the tip for a bill. You go to a restaurant, and let's say the bill is $43.23. That's my bill. So question, what does a smaller screen at the bottom represent or display? So what we're looking at there is it's called a terminal, and we're going to get into the terminal. It's also called a shell. You can issue various commands in the terminal shell, but for now, basically that's where we're going to see the output of our program, if it generates an output. So I'll step down to the terminal window and issue the terminal command called clear. So right now it's blank, and I'm going to come up, and just as we write the program, we'll see the output of our program in the terminal shell in the small screen at the bottom. All right, so I've created a variable, assigned a value 43.23. So imagine that's the bill that I get at a restaurant. And what I want to do is write a program that helps me calculate the total bill and also how much tip I should pay. So next variable I'm going to create, I'm going to call it PCTG, for abbreviation for percentage. And suppose I want to leave a 15% tip. So 15% is 0.15. All right, so I have the bill. I want to leave a tip of 15%. Now let's calculate the tip. So tip is going to be the bill times, and the way we represent multiplication in Python is the asterisk. So asterisk symbol represents, one asterisk symbol represents multiplication. So we're going to multiply the bill times the percentage, and the result of the computation will be stored in the variable tip. And now let's print the value that's in the variable called tip. All right, so this is a program that has 4 instructions. First instruction, store the value 43.23, percentage, variable called percentage 0.15. Then I make a calculation, multiply bill times percentage. The value, the result goes into, I store it in a variable called tip. And now I want the tip amount to be displayed. So I'm going to go ahead and now run the program. And I get the result. A little bit hard to see, 6.485. All right, so that's approximately $6.50. Now, the beauty of programming is I can change one or more steps. So what if I wanted to leave a 20% tip? So I'm going to change this to 0.2, rerun the program, and the result is 8.64. So now I have a way of calculating the tip amount based on the bill and the percentage. Let's do one more step. I'll take print out for a second. Let's calculate total bill. So what is total bill? It's the bill. That was the bill that came in, brought by the waiter. I want to leave a 20% tip, and so I just calculated that in step 3. So the total bill will be bill plus tip. And now I can get a little bit fancier, say total bill. So I'm going to say your total bill is total bill. Now, if you're not the idea here is not to get fixated on Python syntax. I just want you to follow conceptually what's going on. What we want to do is print out the total bill and the tip amount and the tip. Your total bill is in the brackets the value of the total bill with a tip of tip. Sorry, make some changes here. Okay, so now when I run the program, let's do a clear here again. And I'm going to increase the size of the terminal window so you can see it better. Okay, so that should do the trick. Okay, so let me run the program again. And what we get as output, your total bill is $51 with a tip of 8.6. Now I can clean that up so that I don't have so many decimal places, but that's sort of fancying it up, right? So, okay, so this was an example of really variables where we're storing the results. We're using the variable in two senses. First, assigning some value to it. Then in line 3, we do a computation. We multiply the bill amount by a percentage, store the results in a new variable called tip. Then based on that, we create a new variable called total bill, where we add the bill amount to the tip, and then finally print the result. Okay, so that gives us a flavor for using variables. Now let's do another program. I'll call it iteration. All right, so the idea of iteration is I want to use some instruction multiple times. Now there are several types of iteration that will come up in programming languages, and we're going to go over that in Python. So I'm going to illustrate one type of iteration that's very common. And what we're going to do is we're going to form first what's called a collection. So a collection is basically a group of objects or a group of data. And one type of collection that it will appear quite frequently in Python, it's called a list. So I'm going to create a list of, let's just say, authors. And I'll just use the last name here. Joyce for James Joyce. Austen for Jane Austen. And then let's use Morrison for Toni Morrison. Okay, so first instruction is I formed a list. I create a variable called authors, and a list begins with a square bracket. Then you can have items in that list. So I'm putting in 3 strings in that list, and so I have a list now. And we're not going to get to iterations just yet, but let's just print authors. And I'll go down to the terminal window, clear the screen. Let's run this program. And what it does is it just gives me back authors. All right, so I created a variable called authors. It's a list. And it's just giving me back that list. But now, what if I also say print not only authors, but type? What's the data type of authors? Let me run that program. And if we look below, it says class. The object is of type list. Okay, so this is a data type of list. Okay, now let's get to iteration. Now this is a fairly trivial example, but suppose I wanted to extract the first letter of each name in that list. Okay, and so one way to do that would be I'm going to write what's called a for loop. Again, don't worry about the details because this is what you're going to learn in subsequent sessions, but I just want to give you a flavor. For author and authors, print. Now we could just print author. Let's do that, and I'm going to modify it one more time. And let's run this. I'll clear what's below, run this, and now it's giving me an author one at a time. So I'm iterating over that list, meaning I go into that list, pull out the first element in the list, which is Joyce, and I print it out. Then I go back and retrieve the second element of the list. So the print statement comes into play 3 times. If I had more items in that list, it would iterate over the entire collection and print it out, right? So this is an example of a iteration. Let's modify this just one other. Let's add author, and instead of printing out the full name of the author, we want to print out, let's say, just the first letter, and we're going to use what's called an index. In Python, indices begin with 0. Again, the idea is I'm throwing a lot at you, but I just want to give you examples and start having your brain associate concepts like iteration with code. Okay, so now I've modified the program, so it's going to iterate over this list and print two different things, the name and then the initial. And it's going to do this as many times until the list is exhausted. Now, if I were to add another author to this list, Borges, then rerun the program. Let's clear this. So here's an example of iteration, and we can achieve certain types of iteration using a for loop. All right. Now, just going to give you 2 more examples to round out our principles. So here, let's just get rid of this. We have a let me modify my list of authors. Hope I'm spelling Montesquieu right. Okay, so we have 5 authors in the list, and you may not know how many elements are in my list of authors. It could be many. It could be coming from a database that has hundreds of thousands of authors. And what I want to do is I want to apply some criteria. I don't want all the authors. What I want to do is select out authors that have a certain characteristic. So let's make something up. Suppose I'm interested in authors who the length of their name is greater than, let's say, 6. Okay, so what this is the branching idea. If length of author is greater than 6, then print author. Now I'll explain what's going on here in just a minute, the logic, but let me just go ahead and run it. Okay, so what's going on here? So suppose I have a list of authors, and what I wanted to do was retrieve from that list or collection authors whose name, or their last name in this case, length is greater than 6. So if we just, by inspection, we can do this because we only have 5 here, but imagine you've got 10,000 authors in the list. You can't do it by inspection. But Morrison and Montesquieu are the 2 authors whose the length of their name is greater than 6. Notice Austin is exactly 6, and that was not the criteria, right? So I printed authors. If I were to change this to greater than or equal to 6, then I would expect that it will also print out Austin, and then also Borges. Joyce is the only one left out. Okay, so that's the idea of branching, and now, so that's we just sort of covered a very, very important topic, doing iteration, doing branching, and now let's finish up with one more critical kind of concept. Let's go back to our example of calculating the bill. Now, suppose we need to have a bill calculator and we need to use it multiple times, but we also want to generalize it. We don't have to necessarily modify in hard-coded thing of what the bill amount is. So we're going to write a function to calculate the tip for a bill. All right, so I'm going to, and we'll finish with this and also consider questions. So let's do, I'll call it 6. I should come up with more imaginative names for our programs. So we're going to write a tip calculator as a function. Okay, the way we define a function, and we'll get into what a function is and more detail and so on, but let's just kind of do it. So we're going to write a function. We begin to write a function using def. We name the function. We're going to call it tip calculator. And a function typically doesn't have to, you supply it with one or more arguments. Now it's not required, but typically a function will have arguments. These are inputs to the function. So we're going to give the tip calculator 2 arguments. Bill, what's my bill? And what percentage do I want to give the waiter? And it's going to give me the tip amount. So now I put a colon. Now I write the function. So what's the function? The function is going to calculate the tip based on bill. So it's bill times percentage. And now there's this idea of returning a value, which is critical, but I'm going to skip that over. At this point, all I'm going to do is just illustrate the idea of writing a function and calling it. So what it's going to do is print the tip. All right, so I've written my function. I'm going to run this. And I get nothing. I mean, the reason why I get nothing is it's not enough to write a function. I have to call the function for it to do something. So the function is kind of there on the shelf, but I have to go reach into the shelf to access the function. And the way you access the function is by giving it the name of the function, tip calculator, and now I have to give specific values for bill and percentage. Right? So suppose my bill amount was $45.63, and the percentage this time that I want to leave is 18% tip. So that's the first item, is the first number is the bill amount. The second item is the percentage. Let me now run that, and it tells me the tip amount. So I could do it fancier. Formatting tip amount is tip. So I get a little bit more okay. All right, so now I just illustrate one more line. Once I have written the function, I can give arbitrary values into the tip calculator. Suppose I want to know what the tip is going to be if my bill was $83.45 for 43 cents and my tip amount is 0.17. So I'm calling the function again with a different set of inputs, and it's going to give me the values. Okay, so I'm going to end there with pretty much you've gotten now the basic concepts of programming. What is a program? A program is a set of instructions. What's an instruction? Typically, we're performing some computation. We have data. We perform operations on the data. We store the results of computation in variables for retrieving at some other time. We don't just have linear instructions, but there's instructions that we want to repeat multiple times. That's called iteration. Then we have branching, and it's based on certain conditions. If certain conditions hold, then the program is going to go one way as opposed to another way. And then we have this idea of a function. So that's pretty much it. I mean, congratulations, you've learned most of the basic ideas of programming. And also, what we're looking at right now is the environment that professional programmers use to write their programs. And so you're going to learn that as well in some detail. Okay, now I'm going to, if you decide to go into to take this course, what does that mean? What is it going to look like? So I'm going to show you, you will have access to a instructional or learning management system. The software is called Moodle. We've named this thing called Ada for those who are learning Python, data science, and machine learning. When you log into that environment, you'll see the list of courses that you are currently enrolled in. So there are also courses that are coming online, and you can ask to be enrolled in those as well. So if you choose to enroll in the basic Python level 1 course, here's a hypothetical student. There's a general area with announcements, Zoom information, introductions. Typically what you're going to have is before, we don't want to use meetup time for lectures, okay? Anything that is in the form of a lecture, we're going to give that to you in short videos. So there'll be a set of short videos, and typically you're going to watch that video before the meetup. Okay, so we have some videos right now. If you're going to take the basic Python course on how to create your environment, get going with that. We're going to have slides, videos, reading material, and then this is to come. We're still building it out. When you start February 7th, we'll be there. Well, before that will be exercises and problems for you to work on. Okay, and then when you complete each unit, you'll get a badge. So this student, for example, has finished Unit 1. Unit 1 is basically setting up your programming environment, what I just showed you, so that you're ready to go. All right. So and then if you get stuck, there are people around. Deva and Jim, who are on this session, are there as teaching assistants, and along with myself, we'll be happy to help out. They're also, your colleagues also can answer a bunch of questions as you go along. All right, so let me end there, and then see if you've got any questions. You can, feel free to put that in chat, and we'll be happy to answer them. Question was on the professional development environment course. Will you be adding the Anaconda and virtual environment setup videos? Yes. Let me go to that. So there was a course that started a couple weeks ago. If you want access to that, feel free to email us. And let me just show you that. So the course on setting up a professional development environment goes into a lot more detail on setting up the development environment that we won't go into in the basic Python course. But if you're interested, let us know. But the question was around one of the topics that's really critical in setting up a professional development environment is virtual environments. And so we're going to update that course, and we'll be adding more resources in that course area, even though we're not offering the live sessions. Is setting up the virtual development environment. So the answer to Pankaj's question is yes. Very, very critical that as you take on more projects and really to develop a code, you understand how to set up a virtual environment. And we're going to do two ways of setting up virtual environments. One is using Python's built-in virtual environment creator, and then the other one is using Conda. And the Conda and Anaconda virtual environment is especially useful for data science and machine learning if you're going to go on that track. Link to Moodle. All right, so if you are interested in taking the course, I'm going to provide you with a link, and I'm going to show you that as well in just a second. Okay, so the link is in the chat window. Let me log out here and show you what it's going to look like. Okay, so when you click on that link, you should see the screen, and you need to create where it says, if you don't have an account in Moodle, click on create new account, where it says, is this your first time here? And it will walk you through. We don't want you to put down any personally identifiable information. We're not going to ask you for credit card, social security number, anything like that. We just need a name. Use that name consistently, and an email address. That's all we need, and that's all we're going to ask you for. Once you've created the account, you will see the list of courses that you can enroll in, and let us know. You can email pythonfab@gmail.com on which course you'd like to take. If you want to take the basic Python course, then create the account and then email pythonfab@gmail.com. So course one is available now, and Yatin will put you in it. If you already have an account, we'll put you in it. Just let us know if you want to be in that course, or we will also give you the enrollment key. So that's the way to get in. Now, I am going to mention one other thing. I started off with habits. So we want to focus our time and energy on people who make a commitment to following through, right? So we will enter you into a course, but we're going to monitor that you are logging in and doing the set of steps and making progress. You don't have to, there's no completion time. You can take as long as you want, but we want to see that you're in and doing Python and not just getting access to the course and then blowing it off, right? And it's really more of a commitment to yourself to make sure that you're following through. So we do see it as a commitment. You have to make a commitment to work approximately, 30 minutes 3 times a week. It's not a big commitment, but that's the first uh, habit, micro habit that you have to develop. Is I'm going to do Python 90 minutes per week, and not all at once at the same time. In learning theory, it's called space practice. You got to space it out. You're not cramming all in one session, but spacing it out. And I'll also mention one other thing. For if you're new to programming, if you're new to Python, a lot of this is going to not make any sense. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to think, "Oh, I'm stupid. I don't get it." Believe me, you got to shut all that out of your mind. Critical is put in the time, put in the practice. It's going to take about 4 to 5, 6 weeks when you'll first hit your first plateau of accomplishment. Some things are going to start making sense. Then you got to put in a little bit more time, and another 4 or 5 weeks later, you're going to hit the next level up in your plateau. So the creation of ability doesn't happen linearly. You have to keep it. You have to keep practicing for a certain period of time, and the accomplishment is going to come after a certain period of time, typically 4 to 5, 6 weeks. Okay, so just get used to that. So it's going to be really critical that you develop these habits of mind as we sort of progress through the course. Okay, so if you summary again of if you already have an account, just let us know. Email pythonfab@gmail.com for access. The course the Python course starts February 7th, but there are already a bunch of people that have begun the work, and there's a course in data science that also begins on February, the first week of February, as well as a machine learning course. And all the course materials will be in Moodle. And if you want to get access to that, we will give you access to those courses. Okay, so I will end there. I'll hang around for 5 more minutes if people have questions, and if something else comes to mind, again, just feel free to reach out to us at pythonfab@gmail.com again as the email address. All right, so good night, and thank you for joining, and hope to see you again. Mysterious Light, yes. You need to. It's not enough to sign up on Meetup. A lot of people just RSVP, but if you really want to follow through with a course, then you need to sign up on Moodle. Create an account on Moodle and let us know that you want to join the Python course. Okay, thanks everyone, and good night.